Happy Friday, Whitewater students. Rick Oling here with a video about apartment in Athens. Four simple questions. Watch the video. The answers are also, of course, in the book, um, but I'll try to help with the video. Um, Make sure you're clear about the questions. There are four. Um, the first one is when Major Coulter returns from Germany, he's suddenly cold towards the daughter Lida. He explains to Mr. Helianos that the reason being that he knows a little bit about a new field of study, a new discipline, let's say. What is that discipline? What is that field of study? I mentioned it in section, but on the multiple choices you have for the worksheet, I think you'll find it common sense. Coulter again, German officer living with the Helianos. Why is he estranged from his brother in America? He feels critical of him. I gave four reasons, but again, I think you'll say, "Oh, wow, that's I did read that, and that's pretty common sense." So I tried to keep the questions straightforward. Question three: what happened to the dog that was being fed the scraps that Alex was taking over to the second German officer's house? Remember, both officers were beating Alex uh, for insubordination, probably, sullenness in his attitude. The dog, we find out what happened to the dog at the end of chapter 8. So if you need a little bit of help there, just go to the end of chapter 8. More importantly, and this will probably take looking at the end of chapter 8, give me a little bit about the dream that Mr. Helianos has about the dog. And if you want to do a little bit of amateur dream analysis, that's fine. In question four, there's room. Bear in mind, the assignment is I'm going to go in, I'm going to check you did it. I'm not going to be, marking things wrong. So this is to help you, motivate you to read the book and think about it for next week. Get caught up if you're behind. But this worksheet is not super stressful kind of thing where you have to worry about writing skills or anything like that. All right. I'm wearing my Ricky Lee Jones T-shirt that arrived in the mail yesterday. She's a singer I really like. In 1979, when I went out to college, she was at the peak of her popularity. Grammy artist, best new artist, Grammy, um, on Saturday Night Live, where I was pleased to see that she sang a song that they told her she couldn't sing, and almost got herself barred from returning to Saturday Night Live. Great singer, very soulful, very jazzy. All right, Ricky Lee Jones. And it's Friday morning, and so you guys have to take me in a more casual mode. Let me talk a little bit about what I want you to be taking from Apartment in Athens. First of all, I am helping you guys with the reading. For Tuesday, November 17th, next Tuesday, please be finished with chapter 10. For Thursday, November 19th, please be finished with chapter 13. That's a lot, but I'm giving you, a lot of you are already past this spot. So chapter 10 for Tuesday, chapter 13, that's what you'll have read through. Um, and I will change things on the calendar and post on Canvas what I'm going to call an end of semester guide. And it's the reading guide, the assignment guide, but with a little bit more time for an upcoming research assignment and a little more time to read Apartment in Athens. So I can't do it again. This has to be the only time I move back the date. So please be aware of the new reading calendar, assignment calendar, and keep up with it. All right. Some help with Apartment in Athens. I think that the idea that we took from the Joyce Carol Oates unit about inner emigration, that when people are living in an authoritarian, totalitarian state where there's no freedom, there's no democracy, and in this particular instance, when it would be a fascist or hard right, that makes a difference a little bit, the type of totalitarianism we have to contend with. Um, it's best that you keep your dangerous thoughts not just to yourself, but as deeply buried in yourself as possible. You don't want them to surface. Trust me, in this book, at one point, that something like that's going to happen and it's going to be catastrophic. Um, where I want you guys to watch it in chapter 6, 7, 8, 9, through the whole first half the book, is Mr. Helianos, who I really admire in a lot of ways, because he's not a fighter, an activist, a revolutionary. He's not part of the Greek resistance in any way. He actually finds that it's better if he believes the Nazi beliefs in certain ways. To secretly resist them means that you are nurturing seditious thoughts. And we all know that, if you're working on something inside and that's really where your passion and your energy is going, it very likely will alter you as a person and emerge in the things that you say and do. So he has to go the opposite direction. He has to feel that as miserable as they are underneath um, culture's regime, you could say, right? Living there in the house, he kind of rules. It works out better if he kind of believes the Nazi propaganda, because then he can kind of feel like, all right, this is a terrible world order for my wife and I and for my children, but we're alive, we're surviving. It goes on from day to day. It would be worse if, um, and he becomes strangely this kind of creepy creature who you see in Germany certainly during this time, and also I guess the occupied countries. People who were conquered by the Nazis, who would normally be um, anti-Nazi, believe in democracy, whether you want to be from a liberal or a conservative or a centrist point of view. Um, and that's what happens is they go to the center. They don't become radicalized one way or the other, right? They're not going to become Nazi, hardcore Nazi, racist kind of thing. And they're certainly not going to risk going in the direction of communism or socialism, which is where the Greek resistance was going, right? So watch Mr. Helianos and his wife make all sorts of compromises with their conscience. Um, they prefer their son to be docile, obedient, biddable, not a threat to the Nazis. Isn't that a way of kind of accommodating the Nazis? And again, it's better if you genuinely believe it. So he takes his own political thought, which I think before the book began, I think Mr. Helianos was a classic conservative, um, and he moves it towards this weird center that people had to stay in safely if they were going to live under the Nazis. Because Nazi thought became the conventional centrist thought. One time I asked my dad, I said, surely the Nazis in Germany were, most people there didn't believe what they were preaching, right? And my dad said, Rick, the elementary school teachers supported Hitler. What does that mean, right? It means the most bland, safe, middle of the road, conservative in the sense of wanting things to be very stable. Elementary school teachers supported Hitler. It was a horrifying mistake, of course, to make. They were supporting somebody who was a murderer and destroying democracy as rapidly as anybody ever has. But people do this. They think there's a safe center. They wanted order. Hitler promised to restore order, and the teachers thinking, I guess, order in the classroom, just like order in the nation state. So watch this happening to the Helianos. Their political views, they're all their views, narrow and narrow to try to fit in. It's a very unsafe thing to try to do to the human mind. Ideas, when they feel trapped in the mind, I find that they leap over the barriers. We try to confine them within. You say, oh, it's an idea, it's a dangerous idea. I better put a big wall around it and maybe keep it out. We haven't had a lot of luck with walls this semester, right? Think of Our Wall, where the main character meditated constantly on getting beyond the wall. Same thing is true for our apartment in Athens. The freedom within this apartment keeps getting smaller and smaller, and yet Mr. Helianos and his wife, of course, never think about escaping that world. It's not possible. It's their home, right? So as you make your way through those first 10, 11 chapters, think about all the detail in the book. I think that's where the book is remarkable. It's very highly detailed and it gives you a very precise picture of these people. So to review a little bit to help people um, with the worksheet, you don't need to um, cite these things or anything like that. I think just use common sense. But it should work okay just to, I think, review the four choices for Coulter when he's talking about Leda. What's the new discipline? I'll give you a little bit more hint. I think I mentioned in section that it was probably the ideas of Sigmund Freud that were circulating that eventually would give give the major views about children. That helps a lot. um, Again, I almost think I got a little bit silly with the question about his brother in the United States. Um, I think it's mentioned more than once why he is upset with his brother there, who he doesn't hear from and who doesn't come home. What happened to the dog and the dream of the dog? I told you guys this is the end of chapter 8, so that's plenty of help with those. Um, you can consider a little bit with the question of the dog whether part of the dream isn't about politics and who are they, kind of a little bit like the Emperor's New Clothes, who are they kind of kowtowing to? Um, it's always embarrassing when everybody worships a leader, uh, and yet from a different angle, that leader looks absurd or farcical, like this dog would. There was a famous anecdote about a man at the end of World War II who tried to please Hitler. Oops, I'm earlier in the war. I get that wrong. His country had been defeated. I think it was Czechoslovakia, and he put a uh, head made out of chocolate in the window of Adolf Hitler as a way of, signaling to the Fuhrer and the arriving German troops who were marching through the city, I'm one of your supporters here. I think it was Prague. I'm not sure the story is true or invented, but it's a good story anyway. He put the chocolate sculpted head of Hitler in the window and didn't think that perhaps it might be a hot day in Prague. And so over the course of the day, Hitler's face and head starts to melt in beads of chocolate sweat. Yeah, you can imagine the Nazis were not pleased to see that. So again, I think the story might be made up, but I love it, right? The effort to fit in, the effort to conform, the effort to make sure the Nazis don't notice you, right? Which must have been the fate of millions of Europeans during the height of the Nazi occupation of Europe, Fortress Europe, as they called it. So our book is going to do the same kind of thing. It's going to show us a fascist up close, and at first he seems kind of conservative and normal and ordinary. He seems like a family guy, Major Coulter, right? I don't know. What is he responsible for? Ask yourselves that if you think he's like just a normal guy, and we shouldn't be too critical of him.